Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Hi, Terry.
Hi, Nancy Jean. I'm so glad you're here. What a treat. What a treat.
Mm-hmm.
We were just talking about the pandemic and how life has changed, and
Mm-hmm.
um, how Nancy Jean's guides tell her it was all going to change.
Yep, they said you're going home and you're not leaving until we tell you you can leave. And that was in mid, early mid-February of 2020. It was a month before anybody else closed down. So the two places where I read cards, I had to call them and say I'm taking a vacation, and they have been around me long enough to respect my guides. And I told them I was driving home last night, and the guide said, there's a fog around you, and if you breathe that air, you could die. So you're going home. And at that point, there wasn't that much in the news or in the press. You
Yeah.
know, if you remember how fast it was like 2 weeks and then boom. And
Yeah.
I, where I read at the vintage clothing store, she started crying and she said, "What's going to happen to us? Are we going to survive?" And I
Oh,
had a
that's so
dream two
sweet.
nights later that told her yes, that she would survive. And then the wine place, the guy called, well, first person I talked to was the manager, and she said, "Oh, I've heard some about that, but that's not going to be that bad, do you think?" And
Yeah.
I said, "I ain't screwing with my guides, thank you, and I'll be back when I'm back." And I have read cards there once since I walked out, and they have a beautiful patio, but you can't read cards on patios because they blow away.
Yeah.
And um, I went last Halloween. I went back to the vintage clothing store because it is so odd to go out in your life thinking my life's just going to roll on as it has for the last 6, 7 years. And all of a sudden, it's all stopped. And like when I walked back in the clothing store, it was like it hadn't changed at all. And what had happened to that time? I mean, obviously they had different merchandise and stuff in it, but what had
Sure.
happened in that time? And um, not only did she make it, but she had just opened a second location, and she's done extremely, extremely well. She was really big in Instagram sales, and she sold a lot of clothes into Europe because she has marvelous access to vintage clothes here, and
Yeah.
she was selling lots of stuff in Europe. Um, and the wine place, they closed down. Obviously, they couldn't serve people, but everybody was sitting at home with nothing else to do, so they had months where they made more money just pushing wine out the door than they
I
had made.
bet.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they in all fairness to both places, the wine place kept everybody on salary, and and they rotated out their days of coming in to help serve out to the public. And you know, when I went back and to see them all, they said, you know, we're we haven't missed a beat. I mean, it was just as if it's different because they got rid of a lot of the cloth furniture and stuff. They got leather stuff that they could really clean down. But
Sure.
other than that, it still looks like times 10.
Oh, man. Amazing. Yeah, it seems like it was so long ago already, but I remember at the time because I got sick really early.
Mm-hmm.
One of my girlfriend's husband had been in New York and
Mm-hmm.
come back, and he's in tech, and he was with that group that had been at that
Mm-hmm.
party or around those people.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it right away, and everybody's like, "No, you don't have it." And I'm like, "I kind of do. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
stay away."
Well,
But
one person's nightmare is another person's dream. I had a friend who runs a lab that does a lot of genetics work and biology, and they came up with the first really good tests for testing for it. And hi, Dr. Gale. Um,
hi, Gail.
and he he said, I almost feel horrible about this because it's like blood money. But what he did is he took a lot of it and invested it back in, and he now has you can get it if you have Medicare, the inexpensive DNA tests that they run big pharma against, so you can tell whether drugs work in your system. And he did it with me, and they love getting me because I'm the day when they did it, I was 74, and I don't take any pharma medicines at all. So they were kind of, and he said, we never get a clean slate like you. And
Wow.
they ran my DNA, and they had me write out a diary of where I knew meds didn't work, like analgesics and anesthesia meds do sort of work backwards on me. And um, they don't last as long as they're supposed to. So they med me up, and then I'm halfway through surgery and I wake up. But they know that now, so they monitor me. And the last anesthesiologist that had me under said, "Yep, you use it 40% faster than most people." And then they went through, and there were some other things. At one point, a doctor gave me an antidepressant, and I walked around for 2 weeks. And when I went back in to be checked up, I realized I didn't know where I'd been for 2 weeks. And I was teaching school at the time and signing out media equipment. So you can imagine how exciting that was when I looked in my media camera journal and I didn't know who had what. And I managed to get it all back because the kids were honest. And I didn't say, by the way, I don't know where any of this crap is. Um, so, and they told me there's very few. If I ever have psychotic episodes, I'm just stuck with them because none of the stuff's going to work with me.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's okay because I'm not intending to have psychotic episodes.
Right.
And also birth control, all the birth control I took in my youth,
Yeah.
those were all in the red zone. They said they should have been monitoring you completely. And I said, I kept telling them that's why I kept gaining weight. And they were like, probably had a whole lot to do with it because your body just went out of control.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, my body reacts differently to things than other people's. Do you think that's something with our DNA
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh,
being
no, they
genetic?
can tell you. They can. And one of the things that's going on, excuse me, don't listen to
Mhm.
my crappy congested ozone lungs. Um, they can tell you, they can give you warning signs, and it's got a whole. This is completely safe. They're clearly within the 50% range. This one needs to be monitored because they're swinging either way. Or this one, don't ever give them that. And I had a lot of don't ever give them that, and I had no other meds in my body at the time. But most people my age are taking an average of 10 pills a day or more.
Yeah, I
And
believe that.
and a lot of them, like they gave me statins at one point because your cholesterol is too high, and I said, it's always been high. My triglycerides are off the map. They have been since I was a kid. I'm still walking around, so they send me off. We're gonna check you for plaque. You got that much, you got a plaque. They had to run the carotid artery test twice because the doctor who was watching couldn't believe it. I didn't have anything. He said, I've seen newborns with more plaque than
Oh
this one.
my gosh. Wow.
and, and that's one thing they found in my DNA too. I don't make plaque. I'm one of those genetically weird people that just, bring on that bacon and pork. So, uh, and my doctors, when I wanted them to sign the note for me to have this test run before, they were hesitant. They said, no, it's too experimental. The next time I went in, I said, I've had the test run. Here's the results. And they said, oh my God, we've just signed a contract with the company to come do that to all of our nursing home patients because one of the doctors there found his stepfather was on 14 medications a day. When they ran those tests, they found out that 7 of them were doing absolutely nothing. And of the 7 that were left, there were 2 or 3 of them that were fighting each other. So they got him down to one pill. And he said he came out of the fog he'd been in for a year.
Oh, okay. I need the name of that
I'll
place
send it to you.
because yeah, that sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. I've got family that could really use that. Hey, Erin Miss, good to see you.
Mm-hmm.
Sharon Sipe is here. Hello,
Of
beautiful
course, holding
Sharon.
down the fort.
Yeah, as always. Probably
Mm-hmm.
10 other ones. Hi, Teresa, Sonia, Dr. Gail.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see everybody. Miss Charlotte and Jeff and Lottie. Good to see everybody. Well, I can't thank you enough for being here. I've been a big fan for a long time, and you gave me a reading. I think it was during the lockdown.
Yeah, it was during lockdown. I
Yeah,
went back and found you in my book. I write down every reading in a book.
yeah, and it was really on point. So, and not only was it an intuitive reading, but you also threw in some past life information there.
Hmm.
So it was really memorable and really good, really on target.
Yeah, well, those are, I like doing past lives for people because I find them very interesting. But I like the person, you had the right attitude. I'm the only thing that ever scared me about learning how to do past lives was I knew a lot of people that would use that past life as a reason that nothing worked.
Yeah.
And that's not the truth. It's just, that's not what's going on. So we need to grow up and get past that and realize it should, at its very best, someone will say, "Oh my God, that's why I've always hated that." I was talking with another reader, and I had a woman who, when I did her past lives, she had been hung in a really grisly manner. And I said, "Well, let's go find the next one or another one." And anyway, I did like three of them. She'd been hung in all of them. And she said, "Is
Bless
that
her.
why I can't wear scarves or necklaces?" I would assume so, yes. Don't put another around my neck. And I said, "Well, now that you know that, see how you feel about it." And last time I talked to her, she has necklaces, which she always wanted to be able to wear, and she wears scarves around her neck.
Oh, good
She
for her.
lived up where it's cold. And she said, "I could never put a," and people say, "If you put a scarf on, you'd be warmer."
Yeah. Well, it's all about awareness sometimes, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm afraid of the water because a lot of people, um, if you've ever read the book Many Lives, Many Mastered by Weiss, he's the one who found this whole phenomena. And he would regress people. That's the other way you can do it if you don't do cards, is to get regressed into it. And this woman couldn't swallow pills. She couldn't take any, even the teeniest, tiniest little pill. She had problems with. And they went in one of her past lives. She was in ancient Egypt, and she drowned in a flood. Apparently, the Nile went wild and came down, and she drowned in it. But once she understood that that clogging, gagging feeling she had wasn't in this life, she could take pills.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think
over.
we all go through that, don't we? I
Mhm.
know I couldn't I have a thing with being bending over too much or laying on my chest.
Mhm.
I like to float, but
Yeah.
the other way, and I really feel like that was Atlantis and something with the
Mhm.
when
The
things
big flood.
were, yeah, yeah, not being able to breathe. So,
My
anyway,
Akashic record said I got out of Atlantis before it went under.
good for you. Wow, man.
Good timing. Good timing. Go to the other side. Become a particle out in the energy grid.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about your grid, and then if anybody wants any information or anything, Sharon Sipe has been kind enough to put it up here. So thank you,
Mhm.
Sharon. And because I love your grid and the energy that you work with, and I have one here, but I haven't. And I've been a member, but I haven't been to any of the classes because I'm usually busy.
You mean the garden?
The
Are you talking
garden.
about the grids or the garden? I should have named things with not the same first
Well,
letter of the alphabet.
but the grid is what I wanna talk about too,
Okay.
because the grid I've got a birthday coming up, you guys, and I'm
Uh,
buying myself a grid.
this is the grid I have here that I can show. And
Yeah.
this grid came about because I interviewed a guy named Tim Walter who works with ley lines and earth energies in England. And when I was interviewing him, he said, "Have you ever thought about building a grid for the world?" And
Wow.
I thought, well, that's not the least bit pretentious, is it? So I mentioned it to Dr. Gale and to Jeffrey Ripecolor, and they both said, "You ought to do it." And so
Yeah.
they each pulled a card, and out of that card came this world grid. And then those two and Danny Shea and I all fired it up, which is a way that you link the stones by touching them with other crystals and linked everything together. And when you get a grid and you go, okay, what do those stones mean? On the back of the grid is a complete explanation as to why each stone is where it is and how to find it and how to recognize it by its color and placement. And um, this grid is the heart and the Merkaba. It's two cards put together. I don't normally do that, but they just both those go together so well. And the Merkaba is really the final form in sacred geometry, when all the forms are encompassed in one form, and um, it's it's really covers 4 dimensions, and you just fire it up and put the intentions you want on it, and it's 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 a fun thing. I love doing them. Um, they sometimes take a little more time than others, but I have a really good rock shop in Dallas that I go to get my stones. And when I used to, before the lockdown, I used to make grids, and they'd be freestanding, so people could touch and play and move. They could play house with their crystals if they wanted to. And I, when I started showing grids, I had people who still wanted them close in, and so I had already started affixing them. And I had to go through this whole thing. If you lock the grids down, if you lock the crystal down, does it make any difference? And the crystals said, nah, we like being here so we don't get disturbed. I had one woman, I built her a beautiful grid, and she built it, and I said, where did you finally put it in your house? And she said, on my dining room table. And I said, well, it's lovely. What are you going to do when you want to have dinner? And she said, oh, it'll be fine. So she went off, and she was doing her thing. And this is before COVID. She came back in and she goes, I don't know what to do. Everything's falling apart. And I thought I was headed in the right direction. And I was in the flow, and what's going on? Finally, I said to her, where's your grid? And she said, oh, I had a dinner party and I took it apart and put it up in the cupboard, and I could never find the picture you'd given me about where to put the stones. And I said, so I keep them on my phone. I took it off, sent her the picture, and said, go rebuild your grid. And she did. And after that, she got the job she wanted and got the move she wanted. But and I can't promise everybody that. She's just very tied to those kind of energies. And she said, I just didn't think taking it apart would cause that much trouble.
Wow.
You know.
Well, um, so that crystalline energy and the way that we work with it, the way that it works with us,
Mhm.
is there a good way to connect your energy to it, like so that it would be
Okay,
so
this is.
positive?
I'm going to show you a picture of something if I can
Okay.
get to it. As you know, I'm in the middle of doing 9 candles.
Yeah.
So this is the board for the 9 candles, and in the middle I always have grids. So I'll explain to you how I work with those 3 crystals. That's just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. And um, get me back to where I want to be. Okay, this is citrine, and this is one of the first crystals I just went and bought for myself. And when I first got it, it was just completely the most gorgeous. You know, it's a form of quartz. Almost, well, 95% of the crystals you're going to run are some form of quartz, but this one just happens to have the right chemicals in it, and it's gold and it's yellow, and it's good for prosperity, and that's why I had bought it for myself. But let me see if you can. You see those 2 little black dots?
Yes.
Okay, that's happened since I owned the stone. There's 2 more on the other edge too. And those just show up. That's way underneath the surface. I could scratch in that surface all day, and those black dots are going nowhere. They're in the stone, and it has to do with something about it swooping in and taking the dark energy away from me. Then I have this beautiful tiger's eye globe.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
And it's a sphere, and it has every color of tiger's eye that they have in it, from the blues and the greens to the golds to the almost blacks. And that's why I bought it. I saw it in the store and I said, I'm buying that one because that's special. And this is my favorite stone in the world. It's a fluorite, and it's formed into an octahedron. You can say it's got 8 sides, and that means the 4 corners, like north, south, east, and west, and then as above, so below. And I always like to keep that one because right now in my 9 candles, what we're encompassing is this incredible rush of energy that's coming in from the universe. And it's changing us all, and it's changing our world. And if we choose to tie into that energy, we can all help each other go through that change much more easily than if you try to fight it, because it's coming whether you like it or not. And when I started on the journey of putting this particular session together, it I usually do them on the equinox and solstice, but I didn't on this last equinox, on the last solstice, in because they said no, you're going to do it in Lionsgate. So I started looking at things going on around Lionsgate, and they said you're going to become aware of a lot of change of energy. And I already knew about photonic energy, and I already knew by working with ley lines and earth lines and keeping up with the geobiologists that watch them, that there was a big shift coming. Well, when I already had the show all set up and was lining up readers, because every candle, a different kind of reader comes in and we talk about things, and was lining them up, all of a sudden there was this giant in the world of science. Now, probably didn't make your front page, but there's a giant hum.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a 9 megahertz boom coming from space, and it comes in waves. And they found it in 2015, and then they decided, well, what is it? So all these radio telescopes got together all over the world, and they all had to invent new ways to keep track of it, because it has a really, waves are like they go up and then they go down. And the time between that is called the frequency. Well, these had really big frequencies, so it was kind of hard for them to follow it, and they had to take years to develop the pattern. But they wrote this giant article about how this it's a wave of energy that they can pull out of the radio telescopes and get the sound. They turn the electronic field into a sound. It's not like a wave of water that's pushing it. It's just this energetic. They're starting to follow it now, and they're beginning to wonder if it's not pushing the planets around.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that article, and it's kind of woven like in geometric
Mm-hmm.
design, or sacred geometry rather,
Mm-hmm.
and it just kind of flows like
Well,
it's real fluid.
yeah, it looks like a big wavy piece of mesh. And
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
so then today I was reading
Yeah,
about how, Voyager 1, which was launched when you and I were mere children, like in
yeah,
school, right? And now, oh, they're sending this thing out, and that little sucker just keeps chugging on, and it's actually out of our solar system now. It's beyond the heliosphere. It's beyond what the sun controls. And apparently, in the last couple weeks, or they got the recording of it, it redirected itself. It reprogrammed itself to move in a different direction.
that's so cool. Do you think
And
it did
yeah,
it,
the
or it's gonna be
direction it's moving in is towards the dual black holes that are making this wave.
very interesting?
So
That gives me a major head rush right
I
there.
know, I know. It's like, so all this stuff's going on around us, and you know, some of these things may have been happening forever, although they don't think the big hum is. But a lot of them could have been going on forever. But we now have the instruments to perceive it scientifically. And I kind of was laughing every time I read one of these articles, because I can tell them I didn't need any scientific instruments. I just needed to stand there, and I could feel the shifts in energy
Yeah,
going on around us. And the
yeah,
photonic energy that started coming in 2017, and a lot of other things like that are, you know, the photonic energy, they were concerned it would like change our DNA because it's subatomic particles. We used to be shielded from it. The thing that shielded us from it in the galaxy, that cloud moved away about 2017. So we've just been getting the pure dose of the subatomic particles. And it was actually through the geobiologists that I follow that they kept saying something's going to happen, because every 13,000 years they would find in the structure of the crystals that they would have crystalline changes in the crystals. And I'm going, okay, let's stop this for a minute. If it can change a rock, and I work with rocks all the time, these little guys are hard. If
yeah.
it can change a rock, what's it doing to us? And of course, we wouldn't know, because 13,000 years ago we were drawn in cave walls, And I'm sure no one drew a DNA strand and said, this got changed. So they started going back. They did 13,000 years, 26,000 years, 39,000 years, and they kept finding this period of time when something happened on the planets and certain stones, the crystalline structure in them would change. And so, okay, I'll finish and I'll answer your question, Rose Blue. Um, so I was thinking, I actually asked another reader because it was sort of built up enough power by 2020. Is that what tricked off the COVID? Is that what, because that
Oh.
virus is DNA. And because a healer I knew who was going into people and cleaning the scummies out of their brains,
Mhm.
she told me that normally when she cleans it out, she takes a ball of whatever's maladjusted and throws it to the earth for Gaia to purify it, right?
Yeah.
And she said when she started to toss it to the earth, it said, no, throw it into the sky.
Yeah.
The sky. So she threw it up into the sky and she watched it go up, 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 and it went poof like a little firework. And so I asked a couple of readers um, about what they thought. Was it something from outer space, whether it was the photonic energy or the other things that come from outer space could be messing with us too. And all of them got no. All of them absolutely got no. That's not what's doing it. It was supposed to happen for another reason. So, but I kept thinking, we're going to see changes in other critters. And, in the last few months, we've had the killer whales that decided, oh, the word killer means we have to kill what we're going after. So
Yeah.
now they're really attacking boats and really have the potential to kill something. And then you have the sea otters in California stealing the surfboards. I mean, how many years have people been surfing in California and they left them alone? All of a sudden they're like, hey, this looks like fun. And they're stealing them.
Well, I feel different. I mean, my energy feels different, and I think that the chat rooms are all just going through major shifts with
Mm-hmm.
their, as far as intuition is concerned and awareness. I'll call it that. I'll call it awareness. Like instead of being driven to go to the work or go to the store or do this or do
Mm-hmm.
that every day, they're like, well, how do I feel about this? Is this what I
Right.
want to do?
And the other thing is, I used to say if people were a little bit psychic
Hmm.
before all these shifts started happening, they opened up and got a lot more psychic. If you were a
Yeah.
lot more psychic, it's like there are days they just can't hardly get out of bed, and then the next day you're dancing in the clouds. I mean, it's a little bit bipolar, but not really. Um, anyway, so I just tell people relax because as you ascend, if you read some of the channelers that are channeling in, like Magenta Pixie channeled in a whole thing on how we're going from our cellular to our crystalline.
Yeah.
And okay, to get to the questions about the candles, it's going to start on the 29th but that night is the intro night. That's when Danny and I are going to discuss what nine candles means and how it works, and it will end on 8/7. So you have 8/8 clear for you to do what you personally want to do on that day.
Brilliant.
And then this is your answer to our all the candles. Normally, if you haven't followed my nine candles, they've been nine red candles and nine green candles. Well, now they're just every color in the rainbow. And when I was channeling the meditation about it, there's actually a line in the meditation that says, uh, we acknowledge what these many colored candles symbolize the expansion of energy from our life and the balance to the universal shifts. So that every you can so if you have nine of one color and you really like it, go for it. If you don't, you can mix and match. You can put out birthday candles. Just remember, you have to light them every day and blow them out. So you have to get something that's the first candle has to be able to withstand being lit 9 days before it's not there anymore.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Hmm.
Rose Blue says, I don't react as much as I used to things.
That's because you're accepting ascension. And you're also, 2 years ago, I did a whole bunch of shows on the Lion's Gate. And at that point, the way I envisioned the world was what I'd seen was there was a big march of people down this road, just all kinds of people down this road. And then right around Lionsgate, because Lionsgate's actually runs from uh, the 24th of August till the 12th of 24th of July till the 12th of August. The 8 happens to be the day that where Orion, Sirius, and the Earth are in the most direct alignment. And if those names don't make sense to you, means you don't watch Ancient Aliens. But that's what the pyramids in Giza were aligned to. Do tea lights work? Yes, tea lights work. Just make sure they're pretty sturdy ones. Anyway, uh, so the 8th is just the day that it really reaches its peak of power. And 2 years ago, when we saw this trail coming up, and people split on 8/8, and there was one group went one way and one went the other, and then we were watching people learn about their frequencies and how to use dowsing techniques to check your own frequencies and how to meditate, make sure what you're meditating on is effective. And um, I'll be showing that on one of my Tuesday shows soon about the dowsing chart Danny and I designed. Danny Shea, he's much better with graphics than I am. Danny designed that you can uh, check your frequencies. And we were emphasizing that 2 years ago. And we did a couple shows on frequencies and energies and how frequency and energy tie to sacred geometry. But what we warned people was about 6 months after that Lionsgate, we kept having visions. Different readers had it different ways, but people were trying to go back to get someone that had taken the other trail, and you can't do that. That's their trail, and you have your trail, and it's not saying whose trail's who, but
Yeah.
you got to take the one that makes you feel the most empowered. And there was a whole lot of shedding people, shedding old suitcases of grudges we've carried. It's just it's a long, slow process. And so I know for a fact I've had people write me that their intention with these 9 candles is by 8/8 Lionsgate to be rid of all those feelings they have that they have to fix somebody.
Yeah. I recently had a dream and there was a pallet of all my old clothing
Mm-hmm.
floating in the ocean next to me, just floating away. And I just thought,
Mm-hmm.
there goes all my old ways I used to present myself.
Right. Those are your
You
old
know?
costumes. I
Yeah.
mean, everything's a costume. I do have a funny story about costumes. Between when I left, got my master's in business, worked for an airline, and then just got burnt out, I went out and just started. I thought, oh, well, you have a master's in accounting and computer science. What are you going to do? I'm going to install wallpaper, which I'm very good at. So
Wow.
I went and started doing faux finishes and high end wall coverings. And my husband and I made a business of that for 20 years. And we ended up, he was a physicist, but he was really good with plumbing and electrical and all that stuff. I'm not. I think when an electric wire's open from the ceiling, that the little charges are leaking out of it somehow. I know nothing about electricity. So, but I could do all the other stuff. And, but I wore Levi's I wore overalls all the time. Well, I had one business suit left from when I worked for the airline. And it was a very expensive suit. It was an Italian made suit. So a friend of mine was having a Halloween party for all her banker friends. And she said, oh, come on over. You'll have a good time. So I came in my business suit with my name is, and I had my hair on. I mean, when she opened the door, she goes, are you in the right place? And I said, it's me. It's Nancy. And she went, oh my God. She'd never seen me with makeup on. And so I was walking around the party dressed like they dress all day, right? And they're all dressed like clowns and, weird stuff. And I'm walking around in a business suit that looks like what they wear every day. And they were absolutely insulted that I would think the way they dressed was a costume. You talk about no awareness.
Wow.
She said she had some guy come up and go, "That's not a costume. That's what we wear every day." And she goes, "Then it's probably a costume, you know."
Yeah, we all wear a costume, don't
You
we?
know, and if I'd have shown up in my work clothes, which to me is not a costume, it's just a practical thing, bib overalls with lots of places to stick all my wallpaper cutting stuff, um, they would have thought, oh, well, that fits, you know. So anyway, so we're all in costumes, and actually, if you believe in quantum physics, we're really all in costumes in the cellular garb we've chosen. So
So, yeah, because we each have a different light DNA, right? Energy DNA,
right,
and also a physical DNA
hmm
and crystalline energy. Rose Blue says, my solar return is 8-8.
good for you. And next
Awesome.
year you're going to be on 888 because
Oh
the
my
next year, girl, you better put a rocket launcher on your butt. Just so you know.
I love that. Miss Charlotte says, did you guys see a list of channels who are doing a 30-day meditation marathon as of the 15th?
Yeah, I'm signed up for it.
Are
They said,
you?
yeah,
Oh, I'm going to sign up for it. That's
it's
awesome.
free if it's the one that's free. If it's not free, then it's not the one I'm going to.
Let's see. And Sonia says, have a stone, not sure what it is, so thinking I must take to a crystal store. The stone is super heavy and it fits in my hand like a baseball hard bat. Weighs almost 3 pounds, diamond shaped all over and brownish.
Um, you don't have to go to the uh, crystal store. If you have a smartphone, you can download an app. There's an app for that, and that's really true. There are apps for everything. But this one is called, I'm going to make sure I give you the right name before I send you off to get the wrong thing.
I've got it because I listen
It's the
to it on
rock
your channel.
identifier.
Yes, I love it. I use it all the time, and I think about you all the time when I use it, Nancy J.
Um, and what you do is you just take a picture of the stone. Yeah, it's rock identifier,
Yeah,
and it's a cute little logo. And
it's
like if
really
I,
cute.
let me
Right,
see,
I
if
can
it'll
see it
read my
there.
screen. Let me see if I get it. It's really good. What you do is you take a picture of the stone, and which I just did. Now it's identifying, and it's saying that it's quartz, lemon quartz, or Overta quartz, um, or um, what I said,
Citrine.
citrine. It also can be. There's a lot of other orange stones, but you can look at it, and I really, really like it. I mean, I love this app because sometimes, not to say that I'm not the most organized person, but when I'm building a lot of grids, I'll have a lot of different stones out, trying a lot of different. If I know I want blue there, I'll try a lot of different blue stones, and then I look, um, and I'll pick out the one that just feels right. Not, and then when I go back, when I first started studying crystals, which was in 2017, I had notebooks and notebooks and notebooks full of notes of different people's impressions of stones. I have a book that's about 4 inches thick. That's everything you ever want to know about crystals, including their spiritual meanings, but also their crystalline meanings and what they're composed of and stuff. And I took the best notes, and what I did is I just channeled out of all that what I wanted, and I have a 1,000 crystal spreadsheet. That's what I use when I'm doing the grids, and I'll put the stones in, and I keep a list of which stones I'm using. Um, and I always find, even though I may have 2 or 3 different blue stones, I always get the one when you put all the definitions of all the crystals together is right. I often tell people one of the reasons it takes me so long to do a grid is I can't read cards and do a grid on the same day. It's two completely different energies, and I've tried to do it, and I'll build a grid and I'll look at it because I build it in a mock-up, and then I put it all in a bag with the notes on where I want everything to go. Then the next day I'll pull it out, relay it out. And if I've been doing readings that the day that I'm trying to put it together, I quickly found out that was just a waste of my time. I have to really clear the decks. That's why when people want to be read by me and have these things happen, I really try to take Tuesday and Thursday and every other Saturday completely off. So all I can do, like today, I'm blown. I mean, talk about this, but um, it's a different level of energy that I use.
So do you feel like it's clear cognizance, or is it even that, or is it more of a cellular, like crystalline energy?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
just accept that it's there and that I know, you know, I mean, I know I had to go through the kind of learning the basics, and mostly it's the sacred geometry and the basics of chakra colors and the stones and stuff. But if you look at blue stones and you read what their energy is, it's usually communication,
Yeah.
which is, it's like that's when I design my eggs. This is my throat chakra egg. And I sell these two guys, if you're really interested. That's my throat chakra egg. And that's got malachite in it. No, this is blue. It's a blue stone. This is the malachite and not the malachite. The malachite is tempered with the lace, and that's in my heart chakra. And
Oh, that's
when
beautiful.
I when I and the reason I created those eggs were because everybody encouraged me to do something so they didn't have to carry a grid around with them all day, and which is understandable. You don't need to carry your grid around with you. Once you fire it up and set up in your house or your office or wherever you put it, it just stays there and does what it's supposed to do.
Um, yeah, because it's just your awareness of it, isn't it? It's not like
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
physical presence. It's that you've kind of taken that energy into your energy. Um, so what about like shells, like abalone shells and things like that?
I've used a lot of coral in my
Yeah,
grids, and I've used some shell shapes, but they're because of the size of my grids. Uh, I'm not going to have if I put an abalone shell in my 8x8 frames, there'd be nothing left.
there wouldn't be wood there.
But shells are a natural part of it's a crystalline form that's a natural part. It's it's almost like the ancestor stones are the petrified wood and amber, which is just petrified pine sap or whatever sap was out at the time. And um, the the petrified wood you can't do much with, but actually, if you get real amber, you can burn it. I mean, and you can feel it when you rub it. You can smell the amber smell, even though it's millions of years old. So I have a thing called the past life garden, and those are my two ancestor stones that are in there. And then I have citrine for good luck and clear quartz for clarity. And that's another thing. You come to my channel, Nancy Jean's Garden. I play with these things all the time.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Also uh, that website that you gave us, Rock Finder, you can
Rock
do
identifier.
rock identifier. That's it. You can put your it'll add it to a collection for you,
Hmm.
so you can go
Yes.
back and remember what you have, which is good for me because my brain does not always retain these things.
Oh, it's like me. I'll get one and I'll end up. I've got scrap stones right now, still sitting here. I've got this one,
Yeah.
and I've got some. I know what these are actually because I happen to remember because they're so clear what they are. I've got. I always have to test that is that Amazonite or not, and because there's a couple different blues. There's chrysocolla and some other ones, and then this is a citrine. This is a little tumbled citrine. And
Wow.
those are small stones I was going to put on a grid, and for some reason they didn't make it. And then they made it into an odd place on my desk. And then when I packed all the stones up and put them away, I always have about 7 or 8 little stones just kind of sitting around here.
So what about like I collect when I'm I like to go thrifting or antiquing or whatever, or
Mhm,
garage selling,
mhm.
and I'm always buying the beads and the stones. But what if they have a hole through them because they've been a necklace or a bracelet?
It's okay. I use them. I use these little guys. I can't see them so well, but they're triangles.
Oh,
See,
nice.
there's there's certain forms where having directing the energy when you put the point out, it's sending the energy out through the outer part of the grid. If you push the point in, it's taking the energy you're building around in the grid to the center stone. And almost all my grids, I have 4 or 5 designs that really don't have center stones. I have one that's gorgeous. It's called Transition. You're going to have to go to my website to see it because I have absolutely no idea how to share that image off on my screen. But it's it's like the grid is uncurling and makes like an S, and it's
Oh,
a
wow.
transition. The energy is moving out and it's going to move back in. So
Um, so we were talking about the dimensions of the stone or the shape. Um,
mhm.
is the triple sided one always the best or always the most powerful, or is there a
Oh
different?
no, okay. Um, if you get a stone that's like this that has a point on it,
Yeah.
okay, don't put it in your bedroom because that thing's going right in your third eye. Not peaceful. You know, you
Oh.
need a nice smooth stone to keep you peaceful. And if you pick up a stone that's, say, you read up on a stone and it says, I will increase your energy. I'm really going to hype you up. That's not a stone you want next to your bed.
Yeah.
And also, there's this when I was first doing my shows, I did a show called Crystal Chaos. And it was when people just go and get stones and they just keep dumping them all in the same bowl. Well, not all stones do the same things. So it creates crystal chaos. Well, this woman who was watching that show, this was back in it was in 2020, early 2021. She wrote me a long letter and she said, I went out and I told my husband, honey, I know you're going to think I'm crazy. But what they'd done is they had collected stones as they had trips, and they never thought about it. And so they decided they didn't want them scattered all over their house. So they put them all in a big bowl. And the big bowl was in their bedroom. And they all of a sudden they couldn't sleep at night. They were both very restless. They couldn't figure out what's going on. And she said then she saw my show and it clicked that the sleeplessness had started when they put all the crystals in one bowl in her room.
Yeah.
She wrote me and she said, where can I go? And I said, well, if you know what the stones are, you're best to Google it and just see whatever you Google, you're going to find the impression you need to know about you and that stone. And so they ended up taking the sleep and restful stones into one bowl. Then they put the let's have a good time stones in the family room. And she said, and her husband looked at her later and he said, that was insane, but it worked.
I love it. I love it.
So
I need to do that.
crystal chaos is a real thing.
Yeah.
But if you connect to a stone and somebody says it's a high energy stone, but it calms you down, probably means you're a little ADHD adult. But it also means that that's the stone you need for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So how about turquoise? Because I think turquoise is such a universal stone for so many people. Some people are,
Turquoise, first of all, I just had a long talk with a friend of mine who she works with a lot of vintage jewelry.
yeah.
And she uses the rock identifier on her jewelry too.
Yeah.
She found out a whole lot of stuff that was being sold to her as turquoise wasn't. It
Yeah.
was chrysocolla and it was other things. Now, if you pick up a blue stone and you're expecting that it's going to sort of soothe you down, and it does, then it's okay. It doesn't matter if it's turquoise or not. The only thing is you don't want to pay the price for turquoise. If it's. Who was it? Somebody was talking about the Orange Menace. Gave a whole bunch of people these diamond cufflinks,
Oh,
and
right.
then one of these guys left and found out that they were all zircon, and he'd
Yeah.
been talking about how I won you with all these diamond.
Yeah.
So buyer beware. That's why I buy from the little crystal shop that's in my town. And there are several crystal shops in Dallas, but it's just kind of buyer beware and know if you feel like you trust the people that you're dealing with.
Yeah. And I have noticed that some pieces that I thought were halite or were turquoise turned out to be halite.
Mm-hmm.
That, but I think some of them they got wrong too. So it's okay.
Well, if it works for you, who cares?
Yeah.
You
Doesn't
know,
matter.
and I have a stone over here.
Yeah.
Wait a second, guys.
Okay.
Okay. There's a couple cool things you can do with stones. Now, this is a raw sapphire. It's not gem quality, but it's a pretty blue stone. And to me, it's just it's really centering and calming because I find blue to be very calming. But this is what they call a writing stone. And these little white marks, some of them are huge, and that's just a white inclusion of another mineral in it, and they look, for all intents and purposes, like Asian writing.
Wow.
And they used to be pretty abundant here, and now they're not. But I used to put them on my grids as a signature that I worked on this. I the was obviously that doesn't say Nancy G, but But this is something cool you can do if you got grandkids. You can buy full geodes that are all together.
Yeah.
That and and what I did for my grandchildren, I went down to have my birthday with them, and I brought down one geode, and we split it up. And fortunately, since I have two grandchildren, it split up three ways. So they each got their own part of the thing. And this is my grandma geode that I made with my grandchildren. And those are fun things you can do with stones.
Oh,
And for my granddaughter's next birthday party, I got a whole stack of them, and each kid got to break open their own geode as their take-home birthday gift thing.
that was so sweet. I bet they loved that. Did they like?
Oh, they loved it, and the parents that were there with their kids, because they were at that age where that the parents were hanging out. Parents were having a beer in the back kitchen, and the kids were in the front. Um, they said that their kids were so blown away, and it made so much more sense than some of the junkie gift kids, and they don't need another toy. I mean, these kids were all in grade school. Last thing
Yeah.
they needed was another toy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Those take home gifts can be like that. Mountain Dancer says, I just purchased what is called Trelolite. It has
Hmm.
various blues and comes from Brazil. It's in the shape of a heart and reminds me of the ocean.
That's
Like,
right. I mean, whatever you find, and you can find them shaped. If there's a lot of places that shape stones. If you want to build your own grid at home and you want to honor your pet in it, you can find lots of dogs and cats that are carved. Some of them don't look so much
mm,
like dogs and cats, but
yeah. Yeah. And bears and whatnot, right?
mhm.
Yeah.
You can find anything. I mean, if you want a unicorn or you want a little gnome or an elf, you want to bring in the elemental energy to control or to be part of what you're going on.
So do you feel like stones have a lot of elemental energy, that crystalline energy?
Apparently, that's why they chose me when they picked me up in the middle of the night, put me on my dragon Cecil, and said, "You're coming with us." Um, and the other thing that I found out in the last couple of months is a lot of the people that are channeling in um, are channeling in that the elementals are going to be more prevalent in Ireland and in the U.S. And um, they're just all these. One of the fascinating predictions is the dragons will fly off the walls, where the dragons are carved on the walls. They'll fly off. That they've been hiding there. When I went to meet them, they said one of the reasons they wanted to uh, connect with me was because of the nine candles sort of ritual and opening that up to people and making them aware, because they're great believers in rituals. You know, you go out and you put out a little piece of candy for your fairies to eat, and you know,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. And I found I have a ley line that runs in front of my house. It runs underneath a tree. That's one way you can tell if the roots are entangled in a ley line. Is the tree will have lots of those burls on the side. And Hogarth, which I found out was his name, he has a lot of burls on his sides, and that ley line grows every. They're growing now wider and wider and straighter because of the earth energy changes that are happening. I can answer the question about petrified wood. What's about petrified wood? It's an ancestral wood. It carries ancestor energy, older because it was alive at one time. I personally think all stones are alive. Um, I people when they would hear me talk about them, they finally said, "Do you think those things are alive?" And I said they can impart energy and energetic change to me, so that's good enough for me. I don't know what is Larimar. I don't know, and that
Okay.
could be another name for some typical stone. And
Do
skull.
skulls do anything?
If you don't like skulls, don't get a skull. I don't know that they do anything. I know that there's all sorts of stories about that they were made by aliens and stuff.
Yeah, I've heard those. I know there's a couple of channels that work with those skulls, but yeah, I haven't done anything. I just don't know anything about it either.
I used to watch autopsies. I had enough of skulls in my life. Thank you. Um,
Ooh.
I was a recorder for a morgue.
Oh,
Oh, this is one of my fun jobs. My dad said, "Oh, you're a theater major. Come home and watch autopsies." A really wonderful job.
interesting. That
Yeah.
is really interesting. Yeah. Mountain Dancer 9 Candles is coming up. It ends on 8/7.
And it's starting on 7/29, and it'll be at 7 o'clock on my channel. So if you're not um, subscribed to my channel, if you get subscribed to my channel, trust me, I let you know. And every one of those nights, I'll let you know. They're going to be run as premieres. I'm already taped. I've already got almost all of them taped except three. And poor Linda G, her terminal went out, and we just have had the most trouble getting together. I'm going to be together with her and Sheila tomorrow.
What
And
happened?
huh?
What happened? Her power
Her
went out?
Comcast was giving her problems.
Oh,
She could get to my site. My site couldn't connect to it, and
yeah.
my youngest is a computer security encryption specialist. So later in the day, I said, "Is Comcast having problems?" They rolled their eyes and said, "Oh, is Comcast having problems?" And right after that, I was talking with Dr. Gale, and her person who supports her uses Comcast, and Linda's in California. This one was in Pennsylvania, and she said she kept having problems. So,
All the shows that I was on this week had problems. I mean, at least one person on each show had a problem.
mhm.
I'm with Google and I didn't have any problems, but yeah, but
I
my
have
lights are flickering
I have
constantly.
no idea what I have. I have what the computer person that deals with international databases uses. All I know is that nobody can break in here and no one's going to steal my shows. So,
Nice. That's
mhm.
awesome. Miss Charlotte has a girlfriend who specializes in Larimar out of France. She goes to the Dominican Republic every year, and it's where they meet.
Oh,
I
okay.
want to go, Miss Charlotte. Please. That sounds like fun. Hey, Kay. Um, yeah. So in Ireland, Rose Blue says they don't build a structure or road until they know the fairy folk are there or not.
Oh, that's true. In England, when they took over, they said, "That's silly to go around that little mound. We're going right through it."
Yeah.
It had more traffic. It's in the middle of nowhere. It had more car accidents than anywhere else. So they built a curve back around it. And the same thing happened in Mexico, except Mexico, their ferries are called Aluxas. And the president of Mexico uh, said, "Yes, our road crews are seeing them, and they're telling them don't build here." And what they have to do is if they build a highway where they're near them, they build little Aluxa houses. So between, I think it's Cancun, I'm not sure, and a place called Tulum.
Yeah.
There's this house underneath the road, and it's for the Aluxas to have a place to live.
Yeah.
So,
I've I've
yeah.
noticed that I've got a lot of energy outside my house, and I have an auntie tree, and she's on a ley line. But all of a sudden, the energy and the elementals and the ancestors that are here just
Well, they're coming out, kid. I mean,
yeah,
they're going to be out by 2026. I mean, they come in my house, and the thing is that fairies and all those things, they ain't Tinkerbell. And so if I'm not doing the assignments, kind of that flash in my head, well, you ought to be working on this. They give me a couple tries at it, and then all of a sudden, a deck I really want to use goes missing. Or they never screw with my electronics, that they leave alone.
yeah,
But they move. One time I called my daughter and I said, I put this deck out here, and I need it because I'm working with the reader who invented it.
yeah,
Um, and so my daughter and I looked all over. And the day after I did the reading with the woman, and I was very apologetic that I couldn't find her deck, my daughter came walking through my office and she said, look in the middle of your floor. And it was sitting right in the middle of my floor.
whoa,
And my kids are always like, would you tell them they can stay anywhere they want to near you? Stay the hell away from us. So,
oh, oh, Rossi's done. Jane the Seeker's tarot husband is in the hospital. She will not be on YouTube next week. She asked if you can please donate through her PayPal. Thank
okay.
you, honey. I
Yeah,
I will
and
post.
those kinds of things are really tough. And rose blue, oh, trust me, you get out. I mean, Jeffrey Ripe Color lives in Mexico now, and he went down and talked to the wait staff in the little cafe that's below where he lives, where he eats all the time. And this one waiter came up and he was telling him how his father had six of them that ruled over his field, and that they were always very good about making sure that they were given the things that they need to have to stay in good stead with them.
Yeah. Mexico reminds me a lot of the Far East
Mm-hmm.
and customs with ancestors and with working with spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And even the same spices, they use the same spices in their food and a lot of the same foods. It's just
Do you know most of the silver that left South and Central America uh, with the Spanish, they were taken to China and to Japan. They didn't go that a lot of the silver went the other way. The gold went to Europe, but
interesting.
it
Very
created a. I
interesting.
did a whole thing about how the discovery of the New World, well, the rediscovery of the New World, throwing off the people who were already living there, but how they created these new trading blocks and how they affected each other.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Well, Nancy Jean, is there anything else that you want to tell us that we need for this week or this month to get
Um, well, this month, just really, I'm serious about us all getting together. And somebody asked about what were the colors of the candles. This time they can be any color you want. I happen to have set my table up so that they're chakra colors. Um, this is the one below your feet. That's root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, uh, third eye, throat, third eye, crown, and then this is the upper spirit because there's seven chakras and nine candles, right? But you can pick any one of those if you're more into wanting to communicate. You can get all blue candles. If you have a lot of Christmas stuff left over, use all your red candles up. I mean, it's kind of do what you want to do
yeah.
because that's one of those things that Danny and I, if you come on the 28th, the 29th, we will not be lighting candles. We will be discussing. You'll see the board and what it's about, but Danny's going to be discussing it from the idea of shamans. The next day, I had Dorothy Morgan, who I always have come on, who's an astrologer, and she talked about how there's been a lot of the there's been a lot of the foretelling, and the Venus being in retrograde stuff is all part of this rethinking, removing, and moving on to a new place. Um, the next day was Dr. Gail, and we talked about the emergence of new thoughts from her perspective and from the folks she deals with. If you don't know Dr. Gail, go Dr. Gail Skywalking with Moon. She does a lot of good healing work.
Yeah, she's
And
amazing.
then day 3, I had Andre Carr from Astrology Alert. And, he doesn't talk a lot of woo. He talks a
Yeah.
lot of astrology. But
Mm.
I really like him, and he likes talking with me because I've actually studied astrology. So we kind of really understand each other. It's very interesting. Tomorrow, um, I'll have Sheila from Celtic Tarot and Linda G. And what I let them do is I say, look, this is where we are. What do you want to talk about? And they'll let me know. And then I have Kim Carey um, from and I'm sorry, I had Andrea was on with me today from Lilac Lantern, and we talked about just how she's been feeling these changes and how profound she thinks things are going to be. And then we just chit chatted like we always do. And then um, we'll have Sheila, and then Linda, and then Kim Carey. And then my closing person is going to be Kathy McConnell, which many of you may not know. But Kathy is a healer who works with a lot of people in the community. She does not have a channel. Um, she works with plasma energy, and I met her right when the lockdown had started, right when I started my channel. She's the one who I talked with the day that she said she was told not to throw COVID to the ground because it didn't come from the earth, but to throw it up into the heavens. And she started working with me, and at the time I had my lungs were in pretty bad shape, and my oxygen sats were getting into the upper 80s at night, and I couldn't find a way to kind of dig them out of that. And she started working with me 1 day a week, and they've never gone below 92 since.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
we talk about all these energies coming in, all these big giant, you know, uh, quantum theory stuff, and she's talking about plasma, which is more of what makes up our universe than anything else, and how energetically, for a long time, that's what healers have tapped into to make things better.
Interesting. That's amazing. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so she kind of wraps up the energy as someone who works with it every day. So,
It sounds like an amazing lineup. I can't wait. I'm
well,
excited.
it's fun. It's fun, and it's not a lot of fun arranging it all, guys, because you know it's not. I used to work in politics, and it's not as bad as hurting those cats, but trying to get everybody's things, and when their computers are working and when their lives are free and da 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 da. But thank God I started this early because I was on with Andre Carr this last week, and I've had over 40 requests for readings or grids since I was on a show. So I'm now booking those folks out into August.
Andre is amazing. He
He
really,
is. He's
yeah,
so much fun. I
yeah.
really enjoy. I really enjoy what he's doing, and
I like the way he comes at it. There's not a lot of woo there, but there's a lot of cut and dry. This is what I see, but he's right on target.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Manasa's Wellness is here today too. Hi, Manasa. Good to see you. She has a beautiful show in the mornings. And Rose Blue says she was on with Dr. Gail today.
Oh
That's
yeah, she did
awesome.
a Solaris healing, and she was a big bright person. Her normal backup couldn't make it, and since I had you and I had other things going on this morning, yeah, Denise, Kathy is amazing. Um, I wanted, I said I could help you, but I'm not. And she said, no, we're not going to confuse people. And I think the person
Well,
she was more worried about confusing was me, and I had to answer all these lovely people who were requesting, how do you read and what do you do? So,
yeah. Yeah. She is amazing. All right.
yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It's an
Oh,
honor.
I loved it, and I loved meeting all your people. I see a lot of names I don't know,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of names I do know.
there's some overlap, but um, there's so many great people. There's so many great chatters that are readers and
Hmm.
also deeply intuitive, and they're just interested. They don't want to show, but they're
Right.
just,
You don't have to do a show to
yeah,
participate.
yeah, they're amazing, amazing. Anyway, so everybody, thank you so much for being here, and thank you, moderators,
Hmm.
and thank you, Nancy Jean.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye bye, everybody.
Bye
Namaste.
bye.
My light sees your light.
Hmm.